love has sent for me. Now you're singing over me. Your love song. I have heard so many songs, listened to 1,000 tongues, but there is one who sounds above them all. Your soul, your love, you sing it over me and for eternity is written on my heart. Heaven's perfect melody, the Creator's symphony. You are singing over me. Your love song. Heaven's perfect mystery. King of love has sent for me. Now you're singing over me. Your love song. Heaven's perfect melody, the Creator's symphony. You are singing over me. Your love song. Heaven's perfect mystery. The King of love has sent for me. Now you're singing over me. Your love song. Your song, your love. You sing it over me and for eternity is written on my heart.
Amen. No more?
Make sure you grab some cookies.
Oh, okay.
We've been ordered to eat the cookies.
Yes, get rid of those things. They're European, whatever that means. But they're too good. Well, it's good to be back this evening, and we are coming live from Yellow Springs, Ohio, and we're in the lockdown on Monday night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We're in our 4th day, going on our 5th day of lockdown, and so we're keeping our social distances. But this is here in my home. A lot of people say, we're not supposed to have church. I seen something Brother Peter Gomat did. He's in Gabon, Libreville, and they shut the churches down. So he went and got his recording system out of the church and put it in his living room. Mm-hmm. and so I see him sometimes on live, and there he was, he's standing in his living room, and he's got it on his living room table and got a platform made, and he's just preaching away. So I thought, go get him, Peter. So he's out of Gabon. He's there in the area of Brother Felix Uwe Marion. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he and Felix are in the same vicinity. And Peter's where I went to and ministered his place, Brother Coffee, Edu Coffee, and Brother Felix there in Libreville. So we had some really great times together. But Peter had a congregation. Oh my. I mean, it'd be like filling that field up out there. They were everywhere, everywhere. That building was packed, thousands of people. So I hope he's still doing just as well. I hope that the people of Gabon are enjoying it. Brother Marion and Brother Coffee. Brother Coffee's out on a little island, Port Gentle Island, and but he had a good congregation, and we just had a great time. We had meetings in the arena there in Port Gentle, and a good big crowd of people. I remember the discernment of the Lord moving and healing some people and calling out their diseases and healing them and things, and it was just a wonderful time. And the word going forth. I remember I had a brother with me, wonderful brother, one of the best that you could ever take with you. And so we were there in Port Gentle, and Brother Coffee Edu said, you know, we're going to have 3 meetings in the arena, I think. He said, Brother Parnell, I want you to minister all 3 of them. And so he turns and looks at the other brother, and I said, he said, I know you're a fine brother, but I want to hear the prophet. And he said, so you sit still and he's going to talk. I thought, well, okay, I've never tried to make myself a prophet, but if you want to know my revelation, I'm willing to bring it out. But I've always gotten, because of this ministry that I do have, I've always gotten into that context of and jealousy. I told my wife, I said, you know, you get down to where you think there's just nobody else that could ever feel that way, be jealous and upset. And I said, I keep forgetting that, you know, this is just a little symbol to me, but there were only 4 people mentioned in the Bible, and one of them wanted to kill the other one. So you know, there was Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve, and one of them wanted to kill the other and did it. So
over jealousy.
Yeah, over jealousy. So and Ezekiel, he's seen in Ezekiel, I think 16, 17 chapter, somewhere in there. He said the Spirit of the Lord took him up and carried him up into the air, and he said he looked and there on all the doorposts of Israel, on all the priests, the temples, was written jealousy, jealousy, jealousy. I thought, boy, I know how he felt. I know it, and you just have to, you almost have to let it go and just figure it's going to be there, because when you're bringing things out from the Spirit, people are always going to want to be in that position. They always want to be noticed. Not all people, but some people. And so then it stirs up the whole pot, like Elisha. You know, it got to be a pot of that had some wild gourds in it, and he had to throw some things into it to correct it and get it back to where they could eat it. So every once in a while I have to do that, and but it's good to be back. And
You always give it to the people and tell them it's theirs. And like I don't know if you're going to talk about it or not, but
that way they can hear you here.
oh, social distancing. Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble. Like the message you had put out the other day on Facebook about healing.
Yes.
I thought that was excellent because, yes, you have a gift of healing, but so do everyone else. You just have to exercise your gift and
Yes.
just believe.
That's right.
So that's always been your ministry. Yeah, you'll come out with things that are new and things that people haven't thought of before, and you express your thought, but you give it to the people that said, now that I said it, it's yours. It's all yours.
Yeah.
Do with it as you see fit. So for anyone to have a jealous spirit on you, this is just against you. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I guess it's a matter of recognition. Well, that's jealousy, I guess.
But you're not waving a flag. You never was
I
going to
know.
wave a flag.
I have actually, I've even told the people, and I'm telling you again, I don't solicit for anything. The ones that are sitting right here, I haven't asked them for a penny for anything. Now they help. because they want to, but I've never said, guys, I need money from you. I need this from you. I've never said it. I've never asked you. I've told you. And this is what I always said. The Spirit of the Lord knows what he's doing. That Spirit knows. And if things turn to where it's a burden to do this and I can't do it anymore, then I will know that the Lord wants it to stop. I'm not going to sit back and say, the devil's fighting it. I'm just going to say, well, the Lord must want it to stop. It's time for us to back off. And I don't get worried a bit when things get tough. I know something needs to be changed. I know something needs to happen to get through that tough time. And so if I get the help to do these things, I will do it. And when I don't, then praise the Lord, it's finished. And I'll move on to something else. Continue with my revelation, but find a different way of putting it out, however that might be. Same way with traveling. I don't have near the funds I used to have to travel. Some of the brethren made sure and took care of that. But I just look at it as the Lord. And if he wanted me to travel, I would have the means to travel. If he wants me to have my health, I will have the means to keep my health. I watch all those things and I say, if it happens, it's the Lord, and if it doesn't happen, it's the Lord. I don't say it's the Lord or it's the devil. There's no such thing. If it happens, it's the Lord. If it doesn't happen, it's the Lord, and I am satisfied with either way. So I'm that way with everything. If you want to help, I am very happy, and thank you. There are people all over the world that send help in. Thank you for that, those of you that do that, out of Canada and out of the different Asian nations and places like that. You help, and I use those funds to make sure that I get things like this going. So thank you for those, and for those of you that can't help, do not worry. Don Parnell, Tori doesn't think of you any differently. I love you with all my heart, and if you can't help, you can't help. You can come on, you can listen, you can enjoy, you can take what you hear and spread it among your community and your family. That's all the help I need. The Lord will take care of all those things. So we're back this evening to have just a general discussion, and we were talking a lot about the way the mind flows, the way things happen, and the mind takes care of things, passes through the four rivers of life. I was speaking with Brother Mitta this evening, and he was really intrigued by many of the things that we're doing and talking about, and he really enjoys this message. He and I have always stayed in contact with one another, and feeling led to go that way at some point. Don't know when, but I just want to see the people. I want to catch up with Brother David Arndt, and Brother Jerry Almazan, and of course Brother Mitta and Rose, and just many of them. Brother Neil. I think about Brother Neil. You know, it was either the first or the second time I went, but I think it was the first time I went over there. Brother Neil was very sick, and we were at a little cabin that we went to and all of us stayed in, and through the discernment of the Lord, I picked up that he wasn't going to be around long. He had a really sickly issue, and it was taking him down. So I mentioned it to him, and I remember he cried, and he said, "It's true, Brother Parnell." And I told him, I said, "We're here at this cabin for you." And I prayed for him, and he was worried that he wasn't going to have a family, and he wasn't going to have this, and he wasn't going to have that. And because of his issue, he was a little afraid to get involved with anybody. And so we prayed, and I told him, I said, Brother Neil, go, be well, have your family, and enjoy yourself. I'm not sure how many he has now. It's either 7 or 8 children. He definitely took my word. Has a wonderful life, and just has filled up Brother Mitch's church by himself. All those kids, they're all growing up, and so he just it was a great time, and I'm sure that it was one of the highlights of his life, and it was mine too, to see how the Lord blessed a man that would just take you at your word and believe you. So we're going to talk a little bit on evolving past the mind's impossibilities. The mind builds up walls, it builds up traditions, it builds up all kinds of things where that you, all of a sudden you find yourself with a lot of impossibilities. It's not possible that I can do this. It's not possible that this could happen. And I wanted to, for us to just have a good discussion on getting past the mind's impossibilities, because really we came here to build impossibilities. And then through building those impossibilities, we break the entire line of thought about impossibilities. It was an impossible thing to do away with the iniquity of the human being. Moses said it plainly. Human beings cannot be a sacrifice for themselves. Sacrifice your animals, sacrifice your doves, sacrifice your meal, sacrifice all these things, sacrifice it. And you weren't supposed to sacrifice a human being. It wasn't supposed to happen. It's against the law. It's an impossibility. But then when we were in that theophany civilization, in that pillar of fire, we saw the iniquity that was coming, and we built a impossibility in the middle of the sexual intimate organization or the nature of the earth. We built an impossibility for ourselves, and that was a body that came through a woman's womb that wasn't born sexually and could be a sacrifice for us. We built it. In the middle of an impossible task of finding a worthy sacrifice, we built an impossibility. We built something that was totally against what we knew was possible. We got past that impossibility and built a body, hung it there on Calvary, brought the symbol to us, sacrificed the blood. The life in the blood came out back on the day of Pentecost and broke that whole line of thought of impossibility about sacrifice, about being clean, about being holy, about being pure. We broke it. That's what we do. And I wrote this: there are no real impossibilities. Notice I put the word real. There are impossibilities in your mind, but there are no real impossibilities. Impossible is not a reality. If it's impossible, it can't be real. It's an imagination. It cannot be real. It is a vain imagination. An imagining that we can't do something or something can't happen. That's impossible, and it is not real. Reality only holds possibilities within it. Impossibilities never come to be because they're vain imagination, and there are no impossibilities. Be real and step beyond the limits of impossible. Jesus made the statement, through him all things are possible. We think of words and we think of language. We think of words on a paper. We think of language, English, Tagalog, German, Spanish. We think of Russian when we talk about words. Those are not words. This stuff written on paper are not words. They're symbols. And all of those languages that we built are symbols all across all the nations. My words are spirit and they are life. Words are not language. Words are not how you learned to talk. Words are spirit. When we turn back to the Word, which I keep hearing everybody yelling and screaming, get back to the Word, that's what I did. I got away from these things. I got away from all the quotes and all the books and all the prophets and all the Bibles and all the sages and everything else, and I turned back to the Word, the Spirit that's alive today. The Spirit that's alive today living in us. These are possibilities. Impossibilities is trying to live up to something somebody wrote 2,000 years ago. It's an impossibility. Impossibilities are trying to live up to what Moses said. Impossibilities are trying to live by the Word what Jesus said, by the written Word. That's impossibilities. You're imagining things in your vain mind. Move to the possible reality, and that is that you are the Word, and you're not living up to this Bible or these writings. You're living up to what's inside you and becoming one with it. So I wrote that, and we got into a conversation last night.
Yes, you did.
And I wrote, I said, sorry it's late. Was doing a little work. We'll have a fellowship on Friday night. Anyone have any thoughts on your mind as to what would be nice to discuss? And I write and I send that out to a little back porch fellowship, people that I view as kind of belonging to this that we do, and helping and supporting and all those things. So somebody wrote, was it you, Brother Daniel?
Daniel got it started. Blame Daniel.
What about changing our nature in order to effectively evolve? Changing our nature to effectively evolve. That's why I kind of titled this, Evolving Past the Mind's Impossibilities. Because our nature builds impossibilities. It does. It builds, you can't marry this person. They live on the other side of the tracks. You can't marry, you can't be with them. They are of a different race. We build impossibilities all around us. You can't fellowship with them. They are heathen. They don't believe in blah, blah, blah. We build all these impossibilities and say it's impossible to go there. And then what we do is, because we build those impossibilities, we start going by them. And so he said, what about changing our nature in order to effectively evolve, or in order to dissolve all these impossibilities? Dissolve them. I remember growing up young, I was taught by the ministers in the message, by different ones, parents, you don't mix races. And now I have, people all over the world that are married, mixed together, and have all their children and everything. It's an amazing development of impossibilities that became possible because I changed my thinking. You say, how did you do any of that, Brother Parnell? When I changed my thinking, I allowed it in my realm, in my atmosphere, in my arena, because I changed my thinking on it. So when a black and a white came in, or when a brown and a black came in, or Hispanic and Filipino came in, or whatever it might be, it didn't bother me. I changed if I hadn't changed my realm of thinking when they came in, you know what I would have done? Preached on them and cast them out in general. You know, you don't throw them out, but you make them feel so unwelcome, they leave.
Right.
So all you have around you is white on white, or black on black, or, you know, brown on brown, or whatever. I changed my thinking, evolved, and now all across the world, that's one of the things that the message have really hated me for, and that was, I said, there's nothing wrong with this. This is okay. So, changing our nature in order to effectively evolve.
Now, part of that, I'll kind of backtrack a little on that thought, because I've been thinking about it for a while. We came here with a nature that needed to evolve. Now, when I say needed to evolve, it needed to change to evolve. We came here with I won't say imperfect, but an incomplete nature. It's more like it's out of balance. And therefore, to get ourselves aligned so that we can progress, so that we can evolve, we have to take those things about our nature and we have to change them.
Yeah.
Now, like he says, it all starts right here. You have to think about it. You realize it, then you identify what it is, and then you make those necessary changes. And it moves from here to here.
Yeah.
And then once it moves into here, it forms relationships. People who start relationships here and it never leaves here, that's not a relationship. You can walk away from them and it's like it never happened. But once it enters the heart and you've made those necessary changes to where you can connect with someone, that is never broken. For all of eternity, it's never broken. And we need to do that. We need to look at our nature and say, okay, this works for me, but there's parts of it that don't work for the rest of humanity to help them along. So what do I need to do about this so that it not just benefits me, but it benefits the other humans?
Yeah.
Those ones around me. I'm not saying the ones over on the other side of the world who have a completely different life, but ones you're connected to. You have to look around you and identify in them things that may be in you that aren't quite complete or out of balance, and you have to make those necessary changes. But the first thing is you have to identify. You have to realize you don't come, because if you don't, what happens? Tradition. Next thing you know, it's this way and it can never change and we love it and it has to be that way. The minute you do that, you start to stagnate and eventually it'll die.
Yes.
So that's kind of where I started out with that when I wrote that down.
You have to recognize what you are affecting and the effect of it. Like, for instance, me. I'll write. It's in my nature to have fun, to joke, to be a little bit sarcastic at times.
That's your way of joking.
And in so doing, once people get to know me and they're around me and during the days and days and days on, they realize, this guy is just having a good time. He's, that was a joke. That was, like I've said to Sister Connie, and then before she'll make a statement, it's a pretty good statement, and I say, wow, you ain't as dumb as you look. It's just it's a joke. It's a sarcastic little joke. And so I just enjoy doing that so much. It's fun. But if I do that on the internet, in the forums, I can't write a joke. I can't. You know, I was having fun with, I said, well, now that we've all learned the importance of washing our hands, next we will learn how to color within the lines. It was just a joke, you know, that's a kindergartner thing. They teach you how to, hygienity and how to wash your hands, and then they teach you how to color and stay within the lines. So I was saying it like, hey, we're all a bunch of kindergartners. A joke.
We're getting sent to our room.
Yeah, that one. I said, well, it looks to me like the fathers got so angry at all the children fighting that he sent them all to the room. Just a joke. But then there's so many people that they try to decipher that thing out. They look at it and say, what do you mean by this? Oh, he said this, and it's just a joke. But on the other hand, I understand all that. So I have to be more careful and change, maybe not for the people that surround me every day. I still have a good time with them. I have to be careful and kind of change my nature and how I go onto the internet and not do so much of that because people don't know my character so well.
Right.
So this is kind of when I thought about what Daniel was just saying, I thought, well, you know, we all have to do that. I put, this is kind of where we are discussing at the moment. A nature is the character of a person. Or as was taught before, the soul is the nature of the spirit. We said that for years and years and years, but as we came through and passed over into Love Divine, we figured out that the nature is the character of a person, which is their soul. And it is the way that the spirit is acting things out and manifesting itself. So Brother Daniel said that, and I wrote and said, yeah, that's kind of where we're at, and it'd be a good flow to keep going that way. And I asked the question, Jesus asked the question, what would you give in exchange for your soul? So he knew that you could change your soul or your nature. Because he's saying exactly what would move you to change. That was his question. What would you give? He gave examples and this and that and the other many times. The rich man and the poor man and this one and that one. He gave all kinds of examples. The woman that brought the penny and she gave more than all the rest. And there were tons of examples in how he wanted his disciples and his people to change. What would move you to exchange or lay an old soul down and pick up another? What would make you do that? What does it take? Jesus knew that everybody had a point where that would take place in their life. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but how do you feel about it? What is it that makes you change in life?
For me, it's not me. It's not my own interaction. It's not me. It's connection with others. When I'm by myself, which I can be very comfortable in solitude, but when I connect with others, that puts me into a condition to where, in order to effectively connect with them, I realize that I can't just be me. I have to be me plus. I have to be me and them combined. I have to mix the two. That's what stimulates me to change. Otherwise, if I just was by myself, I would find myself in a comfortable routine where I didn't modify things very much. I'd pretty much get into habits and I'd be content with that.
Yeah.
So what does it is connections with other people, for me.
Yes. And Paul kind of said that, you know, when he made statements like, you know, if eating meat offends my brother, then while I'm around my brother, I won't eat the meat. You know, you could just apply a million things to that. But what made Paul change? The connection with certain civilizations, their traditions, their actions, their things that they either held. You remember the Athens? They said, he's Mars and he's Venus and this one's that one. And they said, no, 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 we're not these things. But that was their nature. So there are times when you have to work on exchanging their nature, and you have to work on exchanging your nature to bring you together. And but that is the thing that causes you to change more than anything else, is the people that are involved in the atmosphere around you. You will change a lot. WMB said in the Hebrew series, William Branham said, the soul of man is his theophany. I've never found where he changed that. I found where he expounded on the theophany and said a lot more about the theophany than what he said in the Hebrew book. Who is this Melchizedek? Things that are to be. Few messages later on in his life. But I never found anywhere where he changed that statement. That the soul of man is his theophany. So the caricature and the nature of man is my theophany. My theophany enjoys being sarcastic. My theophany, if you want to look at exactly what was said and get past all of your holy religion, your theophanies can get pretty nasty sometimes and have some pretty unbalanced character about them. For instance, you take a person who says, I love the environment more than anything. I'm willing, and they call them tree huggers here. I don't know what you call them everywhere else, but in America they call them tree huggers. They will sacrifice everything for the environment. They'll sacrifice humans for the environment. They'll put humans in a more horrible condition because of the environment. Then you get others, and they're the same way with animals. They'll kill the humans around them who have all kinds of problems with these animals in order to have the animals over top of the humans, and humans are dying around them and everything else, or they're getting sick and they're doing all kinds. There's an imbalance there.
Yes.
There is an imbalance there. And your theophany, when it comes into this world, it can get itself very imbalanced. That, listen to me, that changes the chemistry of your body, and it changes the logic of your mind, because theophany is logic. It is your logic. And it will change everything about you when you get an imbalance going. And people see the imbalance. They know it's there. If they try to help, sometimes it just doesn't work. But we need to self-evaluate. Take a good look at exactly what we are making the most important things. Because when you make humanity less important than anything else, you've got an imbalance.
And I've dealt with so many of them for years.
Because you've been in that field.
Been in that field. I was in the animal control field, humane society field, and did that for 17, 18, 19 years. And they are some of the most one-sided, radical people you'll ever meet. They will never see the middle of the road and how important humanity is. They will risk thousands of human lives to save one animal. When actually, if you think about it, you could balance it and save it all. But they don't want that. They don't care about that. They just see their view, and they will not come off of that view.
Yeah.
They're out there. It's sad, but they're out there. Oh, brother Felix Longuku Jr. Oh, what is
Longaho.
Longaho? Okay. I have to confess, I always respect and thought that you and Pastor Joe are very serious people. So when you and Pastor Joe crack a joke, it's great to see you guys break the ice in your own special way, and it's great. It's a great joy to appreciate your mischievous side. Please don't change, brother. You have no idea. I don't know about Pastor Jim, but you have no idea how mischievous this guy is. I can tell you a story in Haiti that tells you how mischievous.
Yeah, we'll keep it there. Some things we keep close to our heart. And but yeah, sometimes I shake my head at myself. But thank you, Brother Felix, and I knew Pastor Joe was that way. Because being around him for days or weeks at a time, I would watch him and I'd think, is anybody ever able to crack that seriousness and get inside there? And so it's good to know that he does do that sometimes. Yeah. So your soul change, the Hebrew series, the soul of man is theophany. So your soul change is your nature change, what Brother Daniel brought up. So what we're talking about, if you want to take the word nature out of it and you want to take the word soul out of it, what we're talking about is the evolvement of the theophany. The theophany, which was unknown, no understanding, begins to break open every field within him. Everything from goodness, loving, peacefulness to war and iniquity. He breaks open all the fields and we begin to see what's in the theophany. And then we begin to evolve from there. Mm-hmm. Just an example of evolvement. The world is one right now, trying to conquer this one thing. Mm-hmm. The world became one in World War II to conquer one thing, and that was the fascism of Germany and how it would take over the world. The world, sometimes, every once in a while, we see an evolving of the theophany. Because the theophany is the logic. Everything that you see has been thought of by the theophany. So we evolve our way through and we take the iniquity that was in that, quote, spirit, theophany, and that's the part we evolve. That's the part we move forward in and learn how to change it, is that whole iniquity side, to make the holistic person a good person. It's the evolving of the theophany. And then Brother Alan Stuckless wrote, and he said, amen. The theophany is Christ evolving. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. The theophany is Christ evolving. It is, there was an anointing on the world to remove all the unlevelness of the playing fields. And what came out of that anointing was the virus that has us all locked down in rooms across the world tonight, is an anointing to break the yoke of that battling and fighting and elitism and national boundaries and on races and politics. It's breaking all those yokes. I can't believe how Governor Cuomo and Donald Trump are kissing up so much. I guess if you want to use that word, they are coming together, which were terrible enemies of one another for years and years, long before Trump was ever president. But now they're working together to save lives. And I think sometimes we break these things open into the earth in our logic to bring things closer together.
When it was just Donald Trump, he wasn't giving in. When it was just Como, he wasn't giving in. But now, when it's not about either one of them, it's about others. You see, they made that change to come together.
Yes.
It took the connection with the others and putting themselves aside and allowing others to take the preeminence.
That's right.
Therefore, wow, now they need to change. And they saw they need to change. And later they say, you know what, this is a good thing. What we have done. So they realized within themselves that situation made them change. And out of that, they got a whole new relationship.
Yes. And I will tell you this, it would have shocked me to see this gathering together and kind of Trump and Cuomo being the two that are bringing the amends between the parties for a while. It wouldn't shock me to see a brokered convention and Cuomo being the Democratic nominee out of the DNC convention to run against Donald Trump. Because that's just the way humans are.
Yeah.
As soon as you get through a crisis, it's back to fighting.
Yep. Yep.
And it's sad. But at the same time, it is what is somewhat needed in order for us to have a robust, holistic relationship.
It's pretty robust. All right.
Make some more coffee. Go ahead.
We come here knowing that our nature, which helps us shape our character, needs to be changed, or in some cases adjusted, in order to bring each one of us into alignment with the purpose of the Spirit, to add to our knowledge and evolve. In some areas we're balanced, or we have the correct character for our time. In others we are lacking, so we surround ourselves with situations, circumstances that will press us into changing for the betterment of the present move of the Spirit or the flow of the Spirit. Or I think if I understand Brother Daniel right, what he's saying is there are times when we get pressed into changing, and there are other times when we do willingly change.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And we need both of those.
Yeah.
We need both sides of that. Yeah.
And so in looking at that, I thought, now the thing that's changing, evolving, is our theophany. Our soul, if you want to call it that. Our nature. And I wrote, our spirit uses its logic to set up the needed circumstances by creation and surrounds itself with those things to evolve. It's like a chess game with himself, because he is the best chess player to challenge. He challenges himself. And so it does that. And Brother Allen said, yes, that is Christ, and it is us, Brother Allen Stuckless. I said, yes, the theophany nature needed improvement. So it gave us the ability to change, knowing that as we changed and evolved, we would grow. We would gain more understanding. We would become better chess players if we choose. Therein lays the rub. We must choose to change.
We must choose to change.
And you're going to change. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you sit in that stagnant pool. You're going to change. The change might not be the most desirable thing, but you'll never sit still. As soon as you stop and the light continues on, the light meaning the flow of the Spirit, the understanding continues on, and you stay back here behind the 8-ball, so to speak, and you don't go anywhere, you are changing whether you know it or not. And you're changing, or what I called a little bit later on here, you're devolving. I've seen many brethren devolve instead of evolve. I've seen them pull back. I've seen men that ministered exactly where we are at today, and now they're sitting around waiting on a rapture to take place, waiting on a body change. You know, waiting on, saying this thing that's happening, the coronavirus is getting us closer to the rapture. And I shake my head. I have to scratch my head and say, where did they go? How did they fall back into such nonsense? But they have. They devolved because they stopped and stagnated in the pool. And what gathers there? Wiggletails and snakes and frogs and everything else, and diseases and everything else right there where you stop at, and you don't keep moving with the understanding. So you choose, if you're, like I said, chess player, you choose to make the every move you make on that board, you make a choice, and there's a counter move to it. And you make a choice, and there's a counter move to it. You have to keep moving. You have to keep doing. You have to keep paying attention. You have to keep getting wiser and wiser. You do all of those things, and you're not challenging the man next door. You're not challenging somebody else's religion. You're not challenging politics or any of these things. You're challenging yourself. I'm not trying to prove that I'm better than one of the TV evangelists out there. That's not what it's about. I'm challenging myself so that I can, tomorrow morning when I get up, I can say to myself, I'm further along than I was yesterday. This is a good day. And the day that I get up and I say, man, I didn't have such a good day yesterday. I don't feel real good about today. I missed my challenge. Every day, challenge yourself to be a better person the next morning when you get up. That's what this is. That's why I said you're the very best chess player to challenge. You are. Don Parnell, Torrey, is the chess player that I want to challenge every single day. Get on the board with him and see how I can make him better. I agree with choosing. But everything is a choice, even doing nothing. If you just sit there and say, you remember what Jesus said about the guy? He was out praying, and the disciples came to Jesus, and they said, this man's out there praying in your name, and people are being healed. And Jesus said, leave him alone. He said, those that are not for us are against us. Well, that's kind of just the way it is. There's no neutral position. Jesus was saying, you can't be neutral. You're going to do something by choice, even if it's just staying neutral. The guy said, I'm not going to run with Jesus in that group because, man, they're going to get themselves killed. They are a radical group, and the priests and the synagogues and everybody's going after him. Now I'll go out here because I do have a revelation. I do see that Jesus, this is a special ministry, and I've seen him pray, and I've seen things happen and things change. So he used his name and got things done. So even though he said, I'm going to be neutral, he wasn't neutral. Many people want to do that. There's Joseph of Arimathea who, they stay neutral, they stay hid. They always want to take the dead body somewhere and bury it. And they love the body, and they'll put ointments on it and everything else, but they don't want to be a part of the ministry of the body. But you make choices.
Yes.
Everybody makes choices. I agree with choosing, but everything is a choice here. Even doing nothing, standing still is a choice. Stagnating is a choice. So we are blessed to have a desire to evolve. And we make those choices to evolve. There's something in you. When you have that drive, that unction, that desire, you are blessed, because there are literal millions upon millions who don't know at all what that feels like.
Right.
They have no idea.
True.
Some even are the opposite or the contrast of you, and they choose to devolve. to go so far and then just stop. And in stopping, you're falling further and further behind all the time. Involve yourself with evolving, or the circumstances will put a person into devolving situation. So involve yourself in evolving or devolve. Everybody is going to evolve, one way or the other.
One way or the other.
Everybody's going to evolve.
Right, right. That is true.
Some choose to set themselves into a traditional condition where they will just stagnate. We have to recognize, identify, and respond accordingly to what the Spirit is doing in that time frame. Know how the Spirit's moving. We recognized the change that took place. And since 2014, when that change took place, while others chose a different path and began to devolve, we recognize and continue to move forward in our understanding. I choose to involve myself in this present move because I know that by growing more than taking, I know that by giving more than taking, I will evolve instead of devolve. Keep giving out information, keep pouring out information, keep doing all these things. It is evolution. It is information. You want to know the cure to iniquity? It's information. Taking that information with a desire in your heart and moving on it, that's the cure to iniquity. If you want to know the vaccine, the antidote to being full of iniquity and getting all that iniquity out of you, it is to take on love divine, take on the present moment, take on the way the Spirit is moving, get into that flow. It is the antidote. It is the vaccination. It is all those things that we need for the coronavirus. Taking on the spirit of the day, the move of love divine, is the thing that is needed to take care of all of these things in your life. All things. I'm not just talking about a virus. I'm talking about everything in your life. Change. Information flowing continually. Gaining more and more and more information all the time. We have to break all the tradition to evolve into a higher energy of understanding, Brother Alan Stuckless. We have to break all tradition to evolve into a higher energy of understanding.
I like that. Higher energy. Understanding is actually an energy. It's an evolving energy.
That's right.
You see more, you know more, you encompass more, you're involved in more. It's a higher energy. It's very, very well put. I like that.
Yeah. And then I think it was Sister Connie wrote, yes, I love to change in order to evolve. When you can get to that point that you love change, it's not so bad. But when you come to a point to where change makes you fear, it makes you nervous, it makes you go into solitary, it makes you do all kinds of things. You're very seldom going to evolve in the middle of all those things.
There's a healthy change, there's an unhealthy change.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
And-
instead of living in the present, you find yourself constantly living in the past, the good old days.
Yeah.
Because the present hasn't evolved. It's just like the good old days, but with bad days mixed in with it.
Yeah.
So then instead of looking at the present, we remove the bad and think of the good old days, and we just get caught up in
Yes.
looking backwards all the time.
Yeah. It's like a person they put on the internet, of course, it's a prophecy. They call it a prophecy of William Branham. And they made the statement that this is a prophecy of William Branham about the coronavirus. And it wasn't a prophecy, this is a general statement. One of them was they'll put on masks and they'll put on this and they'll put on that. It's not going to do you any good. Go to the doctors and do this. And then Brother Branham makes a statement. He said, it didn't work. So you know he was talking about the past. He wasn't pushing to the future and making a prophecy about a plague. He was talking about the past. He said it didn't work. So he was thinking about the Spanish influenza, the flood of 37 and all those things. When everybody was wearing masks and everything else and they were dying by the hundreds and thousands, he was saying it didn't work. And everybody took that and they moved it over here and they said, prophecy, prophecy. Well, it wasn't. It was just a general statement about you need to put your trust in the Lord. Do everything you can to be clean, but put your trust in the Lord. And then someone put one out about disease and how that, did you know William Branham prophesied, and the Bible declares that there will be biochemical warfare at the end of time. And I thought, yeah, let's see. How long has biochemical warfare and disease warfare been around? Let's see, we put smallpox into blankets in the 1700s and wiped out 110 million Native Americans. We had the Spanish influenza, the bubonic plague. You know where all those things come from? They carried these animals with the plague on ships and purposely let them off into these different countries to biologically and chemically kill hundreds and hundreds of millions of humans. It's been around forever. It's no prophecy. Use your head and take a look at things. Where do you think this came from in Wuhan? Why do you think it happened? It's biochemical warfare. And we'll find that out. It might be 100 years from now, whenever. But there's a little guy sitting in Yellow Springs, Ohio, that occasionally the angel of the Lord deals with. And we're dealing with biochemical warfare. And it's going on all around us, and it's due to economic greed is what it's all about. So we see all these things happening. We have to recognize and identify and respond according to what the Spirit is doing in that time frame. I choose to evolve because I know that in evolving I have to change, so we have to get to a point we love change. And therefore we will evolve. I said that's the way I see it, Brother Allen. We are constantly shifting paradigms, stepping into less boundaries, and freeing ourselves all the time. We set up, and I was talking with Brother Mitta about it tonight for a while before we came in here. We set up, we were the best at it. Whose walls and whose cities and whose ideas and whose traditions is it that we are now having such a colossal time tearing them down? It was ours. I told him, I said, we were good carpenters, we were good contractors, we were good bricklayers, we were great loggers, we were good at everything we did, and we built walls that were unbelievable, and now we are having to tear down those walls, and we're finding out that it ain't so easy once you build a wall to remove it. And I have to give every one of you a great compliment. You built some good ones. I have to give myself a great compliment. I built some excellent walls. There are still Third Testament people out there that won't look at the flow of this Spirit in this third coming and move with it, because I helped them build walls that they now fortify themselves behind. And what you said, that can't happen, Brother Parnell. You remember Hezekiah? Moses built altars, set up tents, and told people to build altars under the trees and do this and that across all of Israel, and they would go there and they would sacrifice and they would do all these things. And there come a day when all of those things were such an abomination in the eyes of the Lord that King Hezekiah, the Spirit told him stand up and told him, said, go throughout Israel and tear down all those altars. Do you know what kind of problems he had? Have you read of the wars and all the things that he had in his lifetime? And how Hezekiah came in and said, you're going to die? And he begged and pleaded, and the Lord gave him 15 more years, and it was just full of the same chaos. The Lord was being polite enough to move him out. And he stayed there, and he went through the chaos, more of it, just a terrible time, because he was busy tearing down what Moses had built up and what they had built up and become such a mighty nation in Israel. But it was time to tear it down. Now here we are. We're in the middle of some of the same things. Mm-hmm. Now the best thing you can do is don't take so much time tearing it down. Take more time building the present city, building the understanding of who we are, building a city without walls. Mm-hmm. That's the way I see it. We are constantly shifting paradigms, stepping into less boundaries, and freeing ourselves more and more all the time. Can you feel yourself stepping into less boundaries? Or do you feel like there's more? How do you feel? You know, if you can't feel it, it's dead. You know, that's what I always said. You know, the only person in the room who doesn't have any emotion about anything is the guy laying in the casket. And you can say just about anything you want around him, and he's not going to respond because he's dead. So, what is your emotion? How do you feel about things? Does it feel like we're moving in the right direction? Do you feel like you're breaking paradigms, you're breaking traditions, you're breaking all these things? Do you feel that way? We're always being eternal. You can't take away eternity. We're always being eternal. But binding ourselves with impossible situations and circumstances, and then working our way out of them to gain the experience that we desire, that's what we're all about. Mm-hmm. We're flat eternal all the time. But we take circumstances, situations, we build them around us to box us in to where we got what seems like an impossibility of ever getting out of that. Mm-hmm. And then we figure out how to get out of that boxed in situation. Mm-hmm. We do it to ourselves all the time. Man said we can't fly. We're flying all over the world now. Mm-hmm. We got out of that impossibility. There's all kinds of things that we talk about and say we can't do this. We couldn't do many things. We couldn't cross the ocean. We built something that would cross the ocean. We built ships and submarines. We built airplanes. We did this and we did that. You can't go across the Great Lake, but we do it every day now.
Mm-hmm. Space.
Yeah. Going into space, breaking through the sound barrier, you know, on and on and on. The barrier that we are working on now, you and I, when I say we are the real scientists in this world. The rest of them are just catching up with us. We're working on breaking the light barrier. The same way that we broke the sound barrier, the same way that we broke the ocean barrier, the same way that we broke the flight barrier, the same way we broke all this. We're breaking the light barrier now. We're moving beyond the light barrier, the speed of light. And we're saying we have moved into, in this resurrection time, we moved into thought. So the speed of light is such a speed, it'll pass through windows, it'll pass through door, it'll pass through everything. The light just keeps flowing and it keeps passing through everything. But there's still distance. The light that's coming from the sun right now, which is 96 million miles away, is traveling 186,000 miles per second, and it's going to take it about 4 days distance traveling to get here. The light that the sun is making. If the sun went out right now at this second, we wouldn't even know it for at least 4 to 5 days. We would have no idea that there was no more sunlight coming, because it takes that long to travel that distance. So speed is not the only issue, but distance is an issue. You look at the cloud, 1963, Sunset Mountain. There's the cloud, and we say it's a cloud. It's light. It's angels flying. I'll tell you what it is. It's people. That was people. Millions upon millions upon millions of people. But they were in such a dimension, much faster than this one, that the camera was picking up, and all these things, they were picking up streaks of light. And it was Luther and Wesley and Moses and Elijah and Hezekiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Don Parnell and it was William Branham. We were all hundreds of millions and millions of us. That was us, those streaks. And we formed the head of Jesus Christ to fulfill Psalms 27, where it said he would lift his head up above the people. There he did it. We're the ones that formed it, because we are the Lord. We are the Christ. And that was us. Now, that was a dimensional change. When you have a dimensional change, there's speed and there's distance that you have to deal with. How do you deal with distance? How do you deal with it? You have to do it by thought. That's the only way. If I'm going to leave and go to Brownsville, Texas, from here, and I leave tonight, it's going to be about 26 hours later that I'll be sitting in Brownsville, Texas, because it's a distance of 1,500, however long it is, 1,500 miles. So I've got that distance to travel, and I can give a prophecy over here and say, I'm going to be in Brownsville, Texas by Sunday morning at 11 a.m. And then I'm there, and I can say, the prophecy over here that I gave now come to pass. Here I am. But what if we did it by thought? Thought takes up all the distance. And I say, I want to be in Brownsville, Texas, and then I'm there. Not 15 hours later or 26 hours later or 1,500 miles later, but then, now.
So where we took thought to overcome distance, we used speed. So our thought was, if I take speed, then we can overcome distance. So now it's like, wait a minute, let's rearrange it. Let's take speed out of the equation and
Yes,
shorten the distance using thought just to cover distance.
that's right. That is the equation. We've moved to where speed is not a factor now. The factor is thought to remove the distance. Fletcher, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, a seagull that broke into another dimension, and there was another seagull that had already done it, and his name was Fletcher. And Jonathan Livingston Seagull said, I've done it. I've broken the dimension, and now, I'm never going back. And Fletcher said, wait a minute. Why do you think you came here? Why do you think you were able to break all these things? So you can go back and bring others that have the desire to be here with you. But Fletcher told him, he said, he looked across a lake and told him, he said, see yourself over there.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull couldn't do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
See yourself over there. And so Fletcher, all of a sudden, standing right next to Jonathan Livingston Seagull, was across the lake calling for
Mm-hmm.
him to come.
Mm-hmm.
See yourself over here, because over there's over here.
Mm-hmm.
When you get rid of speed and distance, you're able to break everything. And that's what we are doing now. And how are we doing it? By thought. You will travel by thought. We have moved in the last, think about it, in the last 5 years, look how far we moved, and it's because we took away the light, and we said light and darkness are the same to us. We took away distance. We took away all these things and said we're not traveling to go anywhere. This is our home. We are already here. We removed thought, or we removed distance, and we removed light. We removed the speed of it, and we placed ourselves in a world of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And now my physical being is going to have to catch up
Mm-hmm.
with what my spiritual being has done.
And that equation is why we brought time into being. Because when you measure speed and distance, what's one of the key factors of the equation? Time.
That's right.
So when you get rid of speed, you get rid of distance, time is irrelevant.
That's right.
So what is it speaking of? Eternity. It removes that factor out of it to where it shows us that it's eternal.
Yes.
It's just pure eternity, so you don't need to apply. I mean, if you want to measure it, don't measure it in time. Measure it in how it feels.
That's right.
Measure it in value. What does it feel? How does it make you feel? How does it make
Yes.
it? Use that as a measurement instead of
That's
time,
right.
because that is a more excellent way to measure
Yes.
eternity is by feeling
Emotion.
instead of by time. See, we've
Emotion,
always
love.
we've always had that concept that eternity was a time frame measurement. It's not. It's about feeling. It's not about time. It's about how do you measure eternity? By
That's right.
how you feel. By the value of things.
Yes, by the value and the worth of things.
Yes.
What it tastes like, what it
Yes.
looks like, how it feels, the emotional. We're talking about eternal things now.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about temporary things. We've moved beyond
Mm-hmm.
those temporary things that set up a feeling of time and distance
Mm-hmm.
and speed and all these things. And we moved into the reality, the real reality that breaks all impossibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never break impossibilities, all of them, by trusting in speed. You'll never break all the impossibilities by trusting in distance. You'll never break all those impossibilities, but the way you break them is how does it feel? What does it mean to me?
Yes.
How am I going to carry this with me throughout eternity? That's where we break all these barriers. Always being eternal, but binding ourselves with impossible situations and circumstances, then working the circumstances and the situations out to where that we gain experience on how to break those things of iniquity that were in us. Time is iniquity. Speed is iniquity. Distance is iniquity. When you come into those things, what are you doing? You're giving yourself a space in where to act unnatural.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Each time we strap ourselves in to the straitjacket, we change our logic to find new ways out of it and into our freedom. We strap ourselves in, then we figure out another way out, and then we strap ourselves in such a way that you can't get out that way. And we say, got ourselves now, we can't get out of this one. We'll break the law if we have to. We'll break the law and create a body to do it. We'll do anything we have to do. We will break all impossibilities. We'll break the distance. We'll break the speed. We'll break the iniquity. We'll break everything and find our way out of the straitjacket of circumstances that we put ourselves into. When we come to fully understand that we've always been free, but we've created circumstances, situations to challenge that freedom, then we have gained a clear, concise view of our condition. And we can choose to not only free ourselves, but free others also.
Yep, exactly.
Fletcher, Jonathan Livingston, I'm here and I'm free and I'm staying right here and I don't give a hoot about anybody else. No. Fletcher says, why do you think you came here? So that you could go back and bring others to this same freedom. That's what this is about. That's what it's about. We set ourselves free of tradition, fundamentals. Brother Mitt and I were talking about it, all this class warfare, all this racism, all of this hierarchy, all these inferior and superior. We have freed ourselves of all of these things. Even freed ourselves out from the body that we chose and created for ourselves and lived in it for 33 and a half years and crucified it on Calvary. We have freed ourselves from that body. Oh man, how many years did you sit around carrying on about Jesus? And that's all you ever knew.
Yeah.
It's what Jesus did, not what you did. Not how far you come. Not how things changed for you. Not how you raptured. It's all about Jesus. We freed ourselves of that tradition. We got out of the mediation scene, and by getting out of the mediation and intercessory scene, we got rid of our condemnation. And we were able to say, I am worthy. I do have a lot of value. That's what this is about. Circumstances and conditions are created to improve and evolve us. They are never meant to stop us. I don't know who wrote that. It might have been Alan Stuckless. Sound like something you'd write. But it's so true. Conditions are created to improve and evolve us. Conditions are things conditions and circumstances are the impossibilities that you put on yourself. Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten to a point in one day where you just said, "Jeez, there's just no way out of this. Every way I turn, there's this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem. I'm done." And you lay down that evening and you're thinking, there's no way out. This is an impossibility. Bill collectors are after me. Law's after me. This is wrong, that's wrong. I don't know what to do. And the next morning you wake up and boom, 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 everything falls into place. There's the answers. You move through the situation and it's back to normal. And you say, how'd I get out of that? Well, you worked hard during the night while you were sleeping.
Thinking about it.
That little mind of yours never sleeps. That subconscious keeps working. It talks to people. It talks to whoever you need to talk to in life, whether it's an angel, whether it's a prophet, whether it's somebody from the other side, or whether it's somebody here. When your body is resting, you're doing a lot of things.
Yes.
And you get your answers. See, and what I'm talking about is now coming to a point we can break that whole concept of having to wait till the body sleeps. Mm-hmm. And combine this subconscious and conscious together and start moving through the realities here and now. Here and now. When we change our logic, how many knows what logic is? It's a theophany. When we change our logic, we change our soul, our theophany. When we do that, it catches parts of creation and eternity up together. Mm-hmm. It weakens the veils between us. It's a great thing when we do it. By changing our thinking, by changing our logic. Like I said, in my early ministry, if people would have walked into my arena, into my atmosphere, married white and Spanish, Mexican, married white and black, married in such manners, Filipino and white, whatever, when you walked into my arena, you were going to take a scolding that you had never thought you'd taken, and I was going to cut the head off of that flower and make sure it didn't grow in my atmosphere anymore. And I changed my logic. And by changing my logic, it gave more of a freedom for love to grow in my presence and to grow into a lot more beautiful colors than all black and all white and all this and all that. Many beautiful colors. By changing my logic.
Like this rainbow.
Yes, like a rainbow. Changing our logic, we change our soul and our theophany. When we do this, it catches parts of creation. Here's a part that feel welcome around me. Here's a part and his wife that feel welcome around me. Before, I couldn't catch that creation up. They didn't feel welcome around me if you'd have got around me back in those days. And I catch it and eternity up together. I guarantee you the first time Moses heard this concept, he shouted and jumped up and down for joy because he got ripped apart by his brother, his sister, and the congregation because he married an Ethiopian woman. They were ready to kill him for it. And of course the Lord killed many of them for it. And so when Moses heard this come out, he probably thought, yes, after 3,000 years, somebody is finally recognizing, And Samson, the same way. The whole class warfare issue. He went and married Timnah, somebody outside of Israel. Oh my God, that's just horrible. How could you do such a thing? I'm sure Samson probably stood up and clapped. So we see this, we pull creation up in a higher realm by changing our logic, by changing our mind, by changing our theophany, by changing our outlook, and stop trying to make us live in a theophany civilization and live in a human situation and civilization. Like us right now. We don't believe there is a way for those that are on the other side of the veil to eat and to drink or to have casual contact with us. And I mean casual contact. Not once a year for 1 minute to try to get a message across to us, but casual contact. We don't believe there's a way. We haven't believed there's a way. That's dealing with the dead. That's spiritualism. That's this. That's that. We have all kinds of ideas. That's spooks. That's ghosts. That's witchcraft. That's all those things. And because all of those people over there crossed the veil thinking that way, they're over there telling William Branham when he went and seen them in 1960, we can't eat and we can't drink and we can't do any of these things over here and we got to come back to the earth in order to do that. Well, they just carried that tradition over there with them. What if we changed our logic? Like us, we don't believe there's a way for them to meet with us. We don't believe there's a way for them to come from the other side and break the veil and eat and drink with us or have casual contact with us. But Melchizedek did it with Abraham. He sat down and ate goats, drank goat's milk and ate meat and talked with Abraham and communed with him in the tent. And he came back after the battle of Sodom and had communion with him, and all of his hosts of heaven came with him. And they all had communion. But we think there's no way that can happen. We think that, well, it might be a special little something happen every 500 years. Maybe a prophet gets to experience it, but nobody else does. Well, what if we changed our logic? Changing logic changes creation and raises us up to a higher bracket together. What if we changed our logic about it? Evolved a little bit and decided that they can fellowship with us, eat with us, sit with us, talk with us, eat hoe cake and goat's meat, drink goat's milk. What if they can? Just change our logic. Would it move them closer? Weaken the veil a little bit, maybe, between us? What if we told them? They told William Branham, we can't do this. And they just picked that tradition up from religion and church. What if we just said, yeah, you can?
Yeah.
We're the spearhead of this thing. We're the ones moving through this. And we got to break distance, and we got to break speed. And we got to move into thought. And yes, you can break the veil. And yes, we can sit down and eat at the table together. And yes, we can do these things and break that veil and move ourselves closer and closer together. They told William Branham they couldn't. But what if we tell them they can? And we keep telling them, yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's nothing wrong. It's not spiritualism, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing hard or inviolable or impossible about us breaking the veil. We broke so many veils, it's unbelievable. Why would there be an impossibility that we couldn't break that veil? Talk to them enough about it to bring them to the table. I've gotten comfortable with the angel of the Lord. I used to crawl into corners, ball myself up, scared to death to look, everything else. Now, I'm very comfortable. I usually don't even say anything about it. Used to, I think, I got to tell people, I got to say this. Now it's just a comfortable thing. It's a casual thing. What if we were to talk to them enough to break that veil, or at least weaken that veil, to where your spirituality moved you together with them to see, feel, touch, and talk?
In other words, changing the veil from a veil to a portal.
That's right.
Because now it's not a veil, it's not a barrier, now it's a portal.
Yes.
It's a way to, we have finally lined things up to where we can connect with them. So we have changed that barrier into a portal.
Yes. We've taken a wall that we put between us and we've broken it down. And we made it a step through. Yeah. Can we do that? Or is it an impossible thing?
I think it's very possible.
It's very possible. I think we're doing it right now as we sit here and speak of this. I think by us speaking this very thing, we are doing it. It is now changed. And I think ones on the other side are going, that's right. We can. We can eat. We can drink. There it is, right there.
Yes.
We can do it. I mean, they've caught this understanding and they have more limitations than we do. So, us over here with less limitations, if they say we can do it, we can do it.
Breaking all those veils. Evolving logically to close the distances between us. That veil whether you want to believe it's a long distance right now. We think there's no way through it. But we're breaking it down slowly. And once we get a concept of what we can do by thought, the distance and the speed will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Evolving logically to close the distances between us, moving beyond the light world, breaking the light barrier, just as we did the sound barrier. Whether it's light or dark, whether it's understanding or unknown, no matter what it is, we are going to be the same in it. We are going to articulate, we are going to work our ways out of the situations, we're going to break every barrier. Working through all of these things to come together to fulfill Ephesians 1 and 10, the fullness of dispensations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when heaven and earth become one. Breaking barrier, going beyond the Bible. No, you can't do that. What a barrier. What a barrier. The Bible is my absolute. Yeah, I can tell. We got to come to where there's no barriers. Not even words of light. We can have words of darkness that mean just as much as words of light. Words of light are no barrier. When we get them, we don't build walls with them. Words of light, the only veils are the ones we create, as well as barriers. Once we understand this, then we just need to put ourselves in a condition to break them. What veil do we need to break? What's in your mind? What's in your mind that's an impossibility right now?
That's a good question.
Whatever your logic is built.
Yes. Whatever it is. Whatever is in your mind and is restricting you from being all that you can be, it's a veil, it's a barrier. Money. I can hear it. I've heard it all over the world. If I just had some money. What a barrier. You know, 100 years ago, there wasn't any such thing as a Federal Reserve. We bartered with one another.
Mm-hmm.
We traded chickens for vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
We done all these things. Federal Reserve, paper money. You know, when I was in Russia for negotiations back in the corporation, I went into a room where I saw a person's house, a building, and it was wallpapered in Confederate money. Yeah, Confederate money. Where Russia was trying their best to work with the Confederation and work with the South and build and split the nation in two, they had all that money and it went kabunk. And so they was wallpapering their walls with Confederate money. Had Jefferson Davis on it and different ones. And what is it? I remember one time I was in the Grand Canyon, and I was standing and I was looking out over the South Canyon, and it is just amazing, beautiful. Every color that you could ever think of, just moving in and out. Every valley, every canyon, every place. Every move you made, it changed. And here come this Baptist busload of kids and of course all of their parents that are with them and stuff. And they jump out and they're all running to the to the canyon's edge where the railing is, and they're all looking over it, and they're all having a good time and shouting and carrying on. Look at this, look at that, look at this. And so one of the leaders spoke up and said, "Be quiet just for a moment. Just for a moment." He said, "Look at all of this beauty while you're standing here thinking about this. Think about God." You know, and he's a Baptist. Think about what God did. And it's so quiet. And I just spoke up and said, "Yeah, just think about what he could have done if he'd had some money." It got like, boom. The guy just looked at me and he said, "I guess so." But that's the thinking.
Yeah.
Like, money does things. Well, like I said, whether I have money or whether I don't, it's not a barrier to me. I will move and believe it's the Lord, whatever direction I move. And if I don't ever go a certain way, it's because the Spirit didn't want me to go that way.
Yeah.
If I don't ever have a certain account, it's because the Spirit don't want me to have that account. Money is not a factor to me.
It's not even real. And anytime we take a symbol in place of a reality, we've just created a barrier.
That's right. Politics. I mean, what is the leader of your nation doing to you that is so detrimental right now? Any one of you. They don't, the world has come to a political situation where they're not doing anything detrimental. Politics will always have their battles and this and that and the other, but Donald Trump has never come into my home. Donald Trump has never said there's certain things that I can't do in my home. He's never done a thing to Don Parnell, to a Tory. He's never done it. But we get in our head these barriers, these walls, these veils. These leaders are doing this and they're doing that, and has the Spirit of the Lord, have you in your spirit, in our collectiveness of who we are, have we put them in there to bring the world to a better state, or have we not?
We have.
Stop letting that be a barrier. The Spirit, this world needs to change, and the Spirit needs to take more control of this and this and this. It's controlling. You're controlling everything. You're moving. You're doing everything. What in your mind is a barrier to you? When you start removing all this, what in your mind's a barrier? The Bible. You can't go outside the Bible. Well, it's too late. I already did it. And I found the same things that Solomon found. I found that people living in iniquity are just as blessed as people that aren't.
Right.
I found that people that are poor have just as much happiness as people that are rich. I found it all out here. I've traveled the world over, negotiations and ministry and everything else, and I have found that there's no barriers to anything unless you build them in your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There are none. Can you remove all the barriers? Yeah. It's one of the greatest things that you will have ever done for yourself, if you can. Barriers. There's a devil out there. And he will do anything he can to stop you from having a happy life, from having a long life, from prospering, from getting your message out, from doing all these. What a barrier. What a wall. What a veil that people have set up all over the world. A strong veil called the devil, and that's all it is. And when you can pull that curtain down and look at Mr. Oz behind the curtain and realize it's all just a man-made thing.
Same thing with the God.
That's right. That's where it was
You
headed.
know,
Yes.
it goes same thing with the God, just flip side, but it's the same thing.
Exactly.
I have to live good or I'll go to hell.
Yeah.
But I can never live good enough to keep from going to hell.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. I know. I know.
Barriers. Yeah. Good living. What a barrier.
Mhm.
Every day you are going to work things out of your iniquity that's going to cause you to cross the barrier of condemnation and get into a field of unworthiness. Now, if you choose to let that bite you because you stepped in the field trying to make things better and things didn't work out well, and now you say, I'm condemned and I don't know what to do, and I don't know. It's just a barrier. There ain't no devil there. It's real, and it's you. And you crossed into that iniquity for the day, and it's you that's going to cross back over out of that iniquity and make that better for yourself.
I had a conversation with a young lady one time. We were talking about that very thing, and she was wanting Christ to get her out of it. I said, Christ is going to get you out of it. You're going to get yourself out of this. That is Christ getting you out. You doing this. But she couldn't see that. She's waiting on Christ to come and move for her. Like, move for yourself. That is Christ moving.
That's right. I had a similar guy, some conversation. He needed a ride home. And so I said, jump in the truck. So he jumps in the truck and I'm hauling him home. We're talking back and forth. He said, I wish I had what you have. You got such a peace. And, I'm so nervous and I'm upset all the time and I got all these problems in my life. And he said, I don't know how to get myself out of them. I don't know how to solve things. I don't feel good enough about anything. And I just wish Christ would come to me like he does to you. I looked over at him and I said, well, your wish is granted. I said, here I am. I am the Christ. And the way you're going to get yourself out of these things is you're going to stop worrying about all these things and all this condemnation, and you just work yourself through and know that you are good enough, know that what you have is what you need, and build your life in Christ, in the anointing, and change your logic and your thinking and your ideas about who you are, and it will begin to change your nature and everything about you. And he looked at me and he said, well, I know, but I mean Christ, really to come. And I thought, this barrier's just not going to break. And I said, I want you to think about this. I said, years from now, you remember that Jesus Christ came to you in a truck and hauled you home and talked to you and told you how to get out of your problems. He said, well, okay, I remember. But he didn't respond. Breaking these barriers.
My natural brother, he one time told me, I have so many issues, I can't see the forest from the trees. I said, well, that's easy. Take the forest in one tree at a time. Take it in one tree at a time. You'll get to the whole forest.
There you go. Really, understanding is the way to come to our subject. And understanding that there's no such word as impossible. There is no such word. You built the circumstances around you to prove that there's no such thing as an impossibility. "15 days ago, a month ago, we would have said there is absolutely no possible way that we're going to get the world governments who are politically blasting one another and doing everything. We're never going to get them to work together. And here's the impossibility made possible right in front of our eyes. Understanding that there's no such word as impossible. There is no reality of impossibilities. Impossibilities never become a reality. They're only a vain imagination. The way that possibilities come about is by becoming and manifesting a reality. Impossibilities that said we can't fly, and we did. Impossibilities that said we can't break the sound barrier, and we did. Impossibilities that say that we can't move out of the church ages, and we did. Impossibilities that said you can't go beyond William Branham and his message, and we did. Impossibilities all the time that we are constantly breaking. Impossibilities that said we can't lift this condemnation off of us, and we did. Impossibilities that said we can't make ourselves clean until we get out of this world and take on a body change and a resurrection, but we did it. Impossibilities that said we can't be immortal here, we can't be incorruptible here, but we did it. We proved it in the scripture, in the Bible, and in our lives, and we started saying it, and we proved it to be so. It's not impossible to be clean, holy, pure, holistic, and valued and worth everything that you should be. There's no impossibility now. And a few years ago, you would have thought there was no possibility that you could be clean. We did it. It's always about going beyond impossibilities. In thinking, in feeling, in applying. We are not meant to attach ourselves to just one mindset. To traditionalize, we must prove to ourselves there are no real impossibilities. That was Brother Daniel. It's always about going beyond in thinking, in feeling, in applying, and we are not meant to attach ourselves to just one mindset. We did that.
Which takes us right back to the theophany, the logic. It was never meant to stay just that. That's just the first move to move us into more. But it was never meant to stay that way.
That's true. Never meant to stay that way. Never meant to have one mindset. Never meant to continue in absolutes. Today, with my present revelation and in the moment of the hour, I can say I am absolutely free. I am absolutely this and that. Today I can say I am perfect in my present condition because this is what I'm supposed to be. And this is what we're supposed to see and understand. But 10 years from now, I will be saying, I'm not like that anymore. I'm still perfect. I'm still understanding, but I'm moving in the flow and I'm becoming more and more all the time. I never leave the perfection because I stay in the present moment all the time, constantly in the present moment.
So absolute only pertains to the present moment.
That's right.
Because if you try to compare it to the past, it's not an absolute anymore. It's changed.
That's true.
So the only absolute there is the present moment. That's the only absolute there is.
The now, as Eckhart Tolle would say. The now.
Yes.
The now.
The now.
The here and now.
Martin Luther, get out of the Catholic Church. The whole world was wrapped up in the Roman religious empire with emperors and everything else everywhere. Get out of the Catholic Church, an impossibility. And he took a whole nation and moved them out of it. And get into Protestantism, and he did it. And then the Holy Spirit, the leadership of the Spirit, speaks to William Branham and says, get out of those denominations, get out of those Protestant churches, get out of them. And he moves out of them. And the Spirit tells him, go to the Pentecostals, which were the present moment people who had moved the furthest that anybody could move. And then just a few years later, the Holy Spirit tells him, or the Spirit tells him, get out of the Pentecostal church. Don't go into those denominations. What was going on? It was an absolute to get into Protestantism. Absolute to get out of. Absolute to get into the Pentecostal church, and an absolute to get out of them. And as you look back across all those things, they were absolutes for their time, but they are not for our time. They're not there. Something said, get into the Third Testament. I caught that revelation of that understanding, and I got into it, and 12, 15 years later, that same spirit in me said, get out of this thing. It's denominating. You need to move further. You need to go beyond. I've been talking to you for 2 or 3 years inside. Listen, you're headed for death. You're moving down a wrong road. And I got out of it. It's been a great blessing to me. But the Third Testament was my absolute for years. But not anymore. And there's some very good people, excellent people, still caught up right in it. Love them to death. But they are. What time is it getting to be?
5 till 10.
Oh, wow. A lot more here. Pages. But I didn't realize it was getting that late. It's always going beyond in our thinking, in feeling, in applying. We are not meant to attach ourselves to just one mindset, to traditionalize. We must prove to ourselves there are no real impossibilities. I love the wavelength of progression.
Yes.
Brother Allen said, excellent discussion. I believe we will one day remove our veil and see both sides as one existence instead of two separate sides of the coin. There's only one reality, and it is eternity. Although we created this physical realm to evolve, eventually we will realize we can evolve in the merging of simply what is real. That's right. Reality is the only possibility. There are no impossibilities in reality. We are in truth. There is no veil. Never was. We created veils in our own minds. Change our mind, and the veil dissolves. Absolutely, Brother Allen. So that's where we're at. And I'll stop right there. There's some other things here, but we can pick back up on Sunday with this, moving beyond the impossibilities of the mind. The theophany is the mind. It is the logic. And the theophany came here, listen to me, with impossibilities in it. It didn't see how it could possibly live in the humanity. Even though it had the humanity attribute in it, it didn't see how it could make it through some of the things in humanity. Old age, dying, sorrow, death, sin, iniquity. How am I can't move through those. Those are barriers to me. So we created every single one of those situations to prove to ourselves that those were not an impossibility. We'll pick those up on Sunday. Great possibilities ahead of us. Things that we now look at and say, well, we can go there or not. Paul said, I was caught up into the third heaven and I heard things that was unlawful and I couldn't even come back here and talk about them. Well, here's the third heaven. Here's what's going on now. And Paul heard these things that breaks every rule and breaks all the laws of gravity and situation and spiritual boundaries and everything. It breaks it all. He said, unlawful things. Yes, I'm an outlaw.
Josie Wells.
I'm an outlaw. So if you're going to run along with me, expect to get shot at. Expect there to be posters up everywhere about you and rewards for taking you down. Get on that internet and take you down, man. Bring you down a notch and then go around everywhere and just brag about it. I was a faster draw than he was. I was this and I was that. That's okay. I'm eternal. Shoot at me all you want. Do all you want. I'm moving on, and we're going beyond all the laws and beyond everything. Leaving distance, leaving speed, leaving all these things and moving into thought the way we're supposed to. Love you. And I hope this was a good conversation.
It was a very good conversation.
Heaven's perfect melody,
Right?
the Creator's symphony. You are singing over me, your love song. Heaven's perfect mystery, the King of love has sent for me. Now you're singing over me, your love song. Your love song.
Yes. Joining hands together for just a moment. Bringing this connection together. We have found out that change has everything to do with how we connect with one another. So connecting together, bringing together the healing that we need, all the things that we need in this life. Bringing it together, trusting it, and declaring it to be so in the name of Christ, who we stand in and believe with all of our hearts.
God bless.
In
That's all.
our name. Right?
Sure enough.
Our name. In our name.